I'm about to reveal something that might make you absolutely furious. Something about your blood pressure readings. The numbers your doctor uses to prescribe your medications. The numbers that determine your doses. The numbers that supposedly tell you whether you're healthy or at risk. There's a very high chance those numbers are wrong. Completely wrong. Off by 10, 15, sometimes 20 points or more. And because those numbers are wrong, you might be on medications you don't actually need. Or not on medications you desperately do need, or on doses that are too high and causing terrible side effects, or too low and leaving you completely unprotected. And you have absolutely no idea this is happening. What I'm about to share will shock you. It will make you question every blood pressure reading you've ever gotten. Your doctor's office, your pharmacy, your home monitor, the readings that determined whether you started medication, the readings that determined when your dose was increased. All of them potentially wrong. All of them potentially leading to decisions that are harming you instead of helping you. By the end of this video, you'll know the 10 most common and most dangerous mistakes people make when measuring blood pressure. Mistakes that make readings inaccurate. Mistakes that lead to misdiagnosis and inappropriate treatment. Mistakes your doctor probably never explained to you. And most importantly, you'll know exactly how to measure your blood pressure correctly, so that the numbers you're basing life and death decisions on are actually accurate. Stay with me, because what you learn in this video could be the difference between accurate diagnosis and years of unnecessary medication, between proper treatment and dangerous undertreatment, between health and harm. This matters more than you realize. Let me tell you about Richard, and I need you to pay very close attention to this story, because I promise you, you're going to recognize yourself or someone you love in it. Richard was 69 years old, a retired accountant, meticulous, organized, the kind of man who kept detailed records of everything. When Richard's doctor told him at age 62 that his blood pressure was elevated and he should start checking it at home, Richard went to the pharmacy that same day and bought a blood pressure monitor. A good one. He read the instructions. He started checking his blood pressure every morning, keeping a log in a spiral notebook, recording every reading. Richard's morning readings were consistently high, 148/92, 152/94, 156/96, sometimes even higher. He brought his notebook to his doctor at the next appointment. His doctor looked at the numbers and said, "We need to start you on medication." Richard started taking lisinopril 10 milligrams daily. 3 months later, Richard's home readings were still elevated, 144/90. 148/92, still above target. His doctor increased the dose to 20 milligrams. 3 months after that, readings were still high, 140/88, 146/90. His doctor added a second medication, amlodipine 5 milligrams. Over the next 5 years, this pattern continued. Richard checked his blood pressure faithfully every single morning, recorded every reading, brought his log to every appointment. His numbers were always elevated. His doctor kept increasing doses and adding medications. By age 67, Richard was taking 3 blood pressure medications at near maximum doses. Lisinopril 40 milligrams, amlodipine 10 milligrams, hydrochlorothiazide 25 milligrams. And Richard was suffering. The side effects were destroying his quality of life. The cough from the lisinopril was constant and maddening. It started about 6 months after he began taking the medication. A dry, persistent cough that would come in spasms. He'd be talking to someone and suddenly start coughing uncontrollably. His throat would feel tight and irritated. He'd cough and cough until his ribs ached and his eyes watered. Sometimes he'd cough so hard he'd vomit. Richard tried everything to stop the cough. Throat lozenges, honey, cough suppressants. Nothing worked. He'd lie in bed at night coughing. His wife would move to the guest room because she couldn't sleep through the noise. Richard would prop himself up on pillows, trying to breathe, trying to calm his throat, coughing until 2 or 3 in the morning. When he finally fell asleep from exhaustion, he'd wake up at 6 a.m. and the coughing would start again. His doctor said the cough was a common side effect of ACE inhibitors like lisinopril. Up to 20% of people get it. "We can try a different medication if it becomes intolerable," she said. But she also said his blood pressure was still too high and they needed to focus on getting the numbers down. So Richard kept taking the lisinopril and kept coughing. The ankle swelling from the amlodipine started about a year after he began taking it. At first, it was subtle. His ankles would be slightly puffy by the end of the day. He didn't think much of it. But over months, the swelling got worse. Every evening by dinner time, his ankles would be visibly swollen, puffy. His shoes would feel tight and uncomfortable. His socks would leave deep indentations in his skin that took hours to fade. When he pressed his finger into the swollen area, the indentation would stay for 10 or 15 seconds before slowly filling back in. The swelling made his legs ache, a dull, constant ache that was worse when he'd been standing or walking. Richard had always enjoyed evening walks with his wife. They'd walk around the neighborhood for 30 minutes after dinner, talking about their day. But the ankle swelling made walking painful. His legs felt heavy, tired. The aching would intensify with every step. He stopped taking the evening walks. Another piece of his life quietly disappearing. Richard mentioned the swelling to his doctor. She said it was a known side effect of calcium channel blockers like amlodipine. "We can try compression socks," she said. "Or we could switch to a different medication, but your blood pressure is still elevated and amlodipine is working fairly well." So Richard bought compression socks. They helped a little, but his ankles still swelled every day, and his legs still ached. And he still didn't walk in the evenings anymore. The hydrochlorothiazide, the diuretic, destroyed Richard's sleep. He'd take it in the morning and spend the entire day urinating. Every hour. Sometimes more often. He'd be out running errands and need to find a bathroom. He'd be at his grandson's soccer game and miss half the match because he was in the restroom. He started planning his entire day around bathroom access. He stopped going places where he wasn't sure he could quickly find a restroom. But the worst part was nighttime. The diuretic's effects would last into the evening and night. Richard would go to bed at 10 p.m. He'd fall asleep by 10:30, then wake up at midnight with an urgent need to urinate. He'd stumble out of bed in the dark, go to the bathroom, get back in bed, and try to fall back asleep. Sometimes he'd fall asleep quickly. Sometimes it would take 30 or 40 minutes, lying there in the dark, mind racing, unable to settle back down. Then he'd wake up again at 2:30 a.m. Same urgent need, same stumbling to the bathroom, same struggle to fall back asleep. Then again at 5 a.m. Some nights he'd wake up 4 or 5 times. His sleep was shattered, fragmented into tiny pieces. He never got deep, restorative sleep, never had that feeling of sleeping soundly through the night and waking up genuinely refreshed. Richard was exhausted all the time. Not just tired, exhausted. Bone-deep fatigue that made everything an effort. Getting out of bed in the morning felt like climbing a mountain. Making breakfast felt like running a marathon. By noon, he was ready for a nap. Some days he'd actually nap in the afternoon, which then made it even harder to fall asleep at night, perpetuating the cycle. The exhaustion affected everything: his mood, his patience, his ability to think clearly. He'd be talking to his daughter on the phone and lose his train of thought mid-sentence. He'd walk into a room and forget why he'd gone there. He'd read a page in a book and realize he hadn't absorbed a single word. His mind felt foggy, slow, dull, like he was thinking through a thick cloud. Was the brain fog from the medications? From the terrible sleep? From the exhaustion? Richard didn't know, but he knew it was getting worse. He'd always been sharp, analytical, good with details. That was who he was. But now he felt like he was losing himself, forgetting things, struggling to concentrate, making mistakes he never would have made before. And then there was the dizziness. The blood pressure medications worked. They lowered his blood pressure. But sometimes they worked too well. When Richard would stand up quickly from sitting or lying down, his blood pressure would drop suddenly. Orthostatic hypotension, his doctor called it. He'd feel lightheaded, dizzy. The room would spin. He'd have to grab onto something to steady himself. Twice, Richard had nearly fallen. Once he stood up from his recliner and immediately felt the room tilting. He grabbed the arm of the chair and held on until the dizziness passed. Another time, he got out of bed in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and felt so dizzy he had to sit back down on the bed for a full minute before trying again. He was terrified of actually falling. At 69, a fall could be catastrophic. Hip fracture, head injury, the beginning of a spiral that ends in a nursing home. Richard's quality of life was gone. He was coughing constantly. His ankles were swollen and aching. He was urinating all day and all night. His sleep was destroyed. He was exhausted. His mind was foggy. He was dizzy. He didn't feel like himself anymore. He felt old, broken, like his body was failing him despite his best efforts to take care of it. And despite all of this suffering, despite taking 3 medications faithfully every single day, despite the side effects that were destroying his life, his home blood pressure readings were still showing 138/86, still above target. His doctor was talking about adding a 4th medication. Richard felt hopeless. If 3 medications at high doses couldn't control his blood pressure, what would? How many more pills would he need? How many more side effects would he have to endure? His wife watched him suffering and couldn't do anything to help. She'd see him coughing at night, unable to sleep, and feel helpless. She'd see his swollen ankles when he took off his shoes and wince. She'd watch him getting up multiple times every night to urinate and know his sleep was being destroyed. "Maybe you should get a second opinion," she finally said. "Maybe someone else can figure out what's going on." That's when Richard came to see me, desperate, frightened, carrying 5 years of blood pressure logs, hundreds of readings, all showing elevated blood pressure, all leading to more medications, all creating more suffering. "Something has to be wrong," he said. "I'm doing everything right. Why isn't this working?" And when I asked him to show me exactly how he measured his blood pressure, the answer became immediately, devastatingly clear. Richard's doctor was frustrated. Richard was frightened. "Why isn't this working?" he asked at every appointment. "I'm taking my pills exactly as prescribed. I'm checking my blood pressure every day. Why are the numbers still high?" His doctor didn't have an answer. "Some people just have resistant hypertension," she said. "We might need to add a 4th medication. Maybe see a cardiologist. Run more tests." Richard came to see me for a second opinion. He brought 5 years of blood pressure logs, hundreds of readings, all meticulously recorded, all showing elevated blood pressure. I looked at the numbers and immediately felt something was wrong. Not wrong with Richard, wrong with the readings themselves. I asked Richard to show me exactly how he checked his blood pressure at home. And within 30 seconds of watching him, I knew exactly why his readings had been high for 5 years. Richard was making not one, but multiple critical mistakes in how he measured his blood pressure. Mistakes that were adding 15 to 25 points to every single reading. Mistakes that had led to 5 years of overmedication, 5 years of unnecessary suffering, 5 years of taking pills he probably didn't need at those doses. When we corrected Richard's measurement technique and rechecked his blood pressure properly, his reading was 118/76, not 146/90, not 138/86, 118/76. Completely normal. Richard stared at the monitor in disbelief. "That can't be right," he said. "My blood pressure is never that low." But it was right. Richard's blood pressure had likely been normal or only mildly elevated the entire time. The problem was never his blood pressure. The problem was how he was measuring it. And because nobody had ever taught him the correct technique, he'd spent 5 years on medications he didn't need, suffering side effects that were destroying his life, all based on inaccurate readings. Richard's doctor eventually reduced his medications significantly. Within 6 months, he was off 2 of the 3 medications entirely and on a much lower dose of the 3rd. His side effects disappeared. His energy returned. His sleep normalized. And his properly measured blood pressure remained perfectly controlled. Richard sat in my office during one of our follow-up visits and said something I'll never forget. "I did everything right. I checked my blood pressure every single day for 5 years. I kept perfect records. I brought them to every appointment. And the entire time, the numbers were wrong. Nobody ever watched me measure it. Nobody ever checked if I was doing it correctly. They just looked at the numbers and kept adding pills." Richard isn't alone, not even close. Blood pressure measurement seems simple. Put the cuff on, press start, read the number. But there are at least 10 critical factors that must be controlled for the reading to be accurate. And most people get multiple factors wrong every single time they check their blood pressure. Which means most home blood pressure readings are inaccurate, which means treatment decisions are being made based on bad data, which means people are being overmedicated or undermedicated based on numbers that don't reflect their true blood pressure. But I'm not going to tell you what those 10 mistakes are yet. I'm not going to reveal what Richard was doing wrong. Because first you need to understand something. You need to understand that blood pressure measurement is not as simple as it looks. You need to understand that small changes in technique can create enormous changes in the reading. Because without understanding this, you'll hear the 10 mistakes and think they don't matter. You'll dismiss them as minor details, and you'll keep making them. Blood pressure is the force of blood pushing against the walls of your arteries. When your heart beats, it pumps blood into the arteries and pressure rises. This is systolic pressure, the top number. Between beats, when your heart relaxes, pressure drops. This is diastolic pressure, the bottom number. Measuring this pressure accurately requires controlling for dozens of variables that can affect the reading. Your body position, whether you've been moving, whether you're talking, whether your arm is supported, whether the cuff is the right size, whether your bladder is full, whether you just drank coffee, whether you're anxious, whether your legs are crossed. Every single one of these factors can add or subtract 5, 10, even 15 points to the reading. Think about what that means. If you cross your legs while checking your blood pressure, you might add 5 to 8 points to the systolic reading. If you don't rest for 5 minutes before checking, you might add 10 points. If your arm isn't supported at heart level, you might add 10 points. If you're talking during the measurement, you might add 10 to 15 points. If the cuff is too small, you might add 5 to 10 points. Add up multiple mistakes, and you can easily get a reading that's 20 or 30 points higher than your true blood pressure, which means the difference between normal blood pressure and diagnosed hypertension, the difference between no medication and 3 medications, the difference between health and years of unnecessary side effects. And here's what makes this even more terrifying. Most doctors' offices make these same mistakes. The nurse rushes you into the exam room, tells you to sit down, immediately puts the cuff on without letting you rest. Your arm is dangling unsupported, your legs are crossed, your bladder is full because you've been sitting in the waiting room. She checks your blood pressure, gets a reading of 148/92, writes it in your chart, and leaves. Your doctor walks in, sees 148/92, and says, "Your blood pressure is elevated. Let's start medication." Nobody rested you first. Nobody positioned you correctly. Nobody used proper technique. But the number goes in your chart, and medications get prescribed, and your life changes. All based on a reading that was probably 15 to 20 points higher than your actual blood pressure. Comment below right now if you've ever had your blood pressure checked at the doctor's office while sitting with your legs crossed or your arm unsupported, or immediately after walking in from the waiting room. Type "wrong technique" if you recognize this, because I'd bet the vast majority of you have had blood pressure readings taken with improper technique, which means the vast majority of you have inaccurate numbers in your medical chart. Numbers that might be driving inappropriate treatment decisions. Are you starting to feel angry? You should be. Because this isn't complicated. This isn't advanced medical science. This is basic measurement technique, and almost nobody is doing it correctly. Not patients at home, not medical assistants in doctors' offices, not the people at the pharmacy offering free blood pressure checks. Now let me tell you what Richard was doing wrong, because understanding his specific mistakes will help you recognize your own. And then I'm going to give you all 10 mistakes, one by one, with the correct technique for each, so you can finally start getting accurate readings. Richard's first mistake was checking his blood pressure immediately after waking up and getting out of bed. He'd wake up, walk to the bathroom, come back to the bedroom, sit on the edge of his bed, and check his blood pressure. No rest period. His body had just gone from lying down to standing to walking to sitting. His heart rate was still elevated from the movement. His blood vessels were still adjusting. And he was checking his blood pressure in the middle of all that adjustment, adding probably 10 to 12 points to every reading. Richard's second mistake was not supporting his arm. He'd sit on the edge of his bed with the cuff on his left arm, but his arm was just hanging at his side, unsupported. Your arm must be supported at heart level during blood pressure measurement. When your arm hangs unsupported, the muscles are working to hold it in position. That muscle tension affects blood flow and raises the reading. Studies show unsupported arm can add 10 points or more to systolic pressure. Richard's third mistake was having his legs crossed while sitting on the edge of the bed. Crossing your legs during blood pressure measurement raises the reading by constricting blood vessels and increasing resistance. Research shows leg crossing can add 5 to 8 points to systolic blood pressure. It's a small detail that makes a meaningful difference. Richard's fourth mistake was wearing a long-sleeved shirt and just rolling up the sleeve to put the cuff on. When you roll up a sleeve, the fabric bunches and compresses around your arm above the cuff. This compression affects the reading. The correct technique is to remove the sleeve entirely or wear short sleeves. Richard's fifth mistake was talking to his wife while checking his blood pressure. She'd be getting ready in the bathroom, and they'd have a conversation. He'd check his blood pressure while talking. Talking during blood pressure measurement raises the reading significantly. Studies show talking can add 10 to 15 points to systolic pressure. You must be completely silent during the measurement. Those 5 mistakes alone were adding probably 40 to 50 points to Richard's readings. His true blood pressure was likely 120/78. But with all those mistakes combined, he was getting readings of 155/94. And that difference, that 35-point difference in the systolic number, was the difference between being labeled hypertensive and being normal. The difference between 3 medications and possibly none at all. But there are 5 more critical mistakes I need to tell you about. Mistakes that are just as common and just as dangerous. But before I do, I need you to understand something. These mistakes aren't just affecting home blood pressure monitoring. They're affecting readings in doctors' offices. They're affecting treatment decisions. They're affecting millions of people right now who are either over-medicated or under-medicated because their blood pressure has never been measured correctly. Are you starting to wonder if your own blood pressure readings have been accurate? Are you starting to think about how you've been measuring it? Good. That means you're paying attention. That means you're ready to learn the correct technique. Stay with me because the next 5 mistakes are just as critical. Mistake number 6 is checking blood pressure with a full bladder. When your bladder is full, your sympathetic nervous system activates slightly to help you hold the urine. This sympathetic activation raises blood pressure. Studies show a full bladder can add 10 to 15 points to systolic pressure. You should always empty your bladder before checking blood pressure. Always. Let me tell you about Margaret. She's 72. She checks her blood pressure every morning, first thing after waking up. She gets out of bed, walks to the bathroom, doesn't empty her bladder because she's in a hurry, walks back to her bedroom and checks her blood pressure. Her bladder is full from the entire night. That full bladder is adding 10 to 15 points to every single reading. Margaret's doctor sees consistently elevated readings in her log. He increases her medication. Margaret's bladder was the problem, not her blood pressure. But nobody asked if she was emptying her bladder first. But how many times have you had your blood pressure checked at the doctor's office after sitting in the waiting room for 20 minutes with a full bladder? Probably every single time. You're called into the exam room. The medical assistant immediately puts the cuff on. Your bladder is full. The reading is elevated. Nobody connects the dots. The reading goes in your chart. Treatment decisions get made, all based on that artificially elevated number. Mistake number 7 is checking blood pressure too soon after caffeine or smoking. Caffeine causes a temporary spike in blood pressure that lasts for 30 to 60 minutes after consumption. Smoking causes an even larger spike that lasts similarly. If you check your blood pressure within an hour of coffee or a cigarette, you're going to get a falsely elevated reading. Let me tell you about James. He's 68. He wakes up every morning, makes himself a strong cup of coffee, drinks it while reading the news, then checks his blood pressure 15 minutes later. Every single morning reading is elevated. 152/94, 156/96. His doctor is concerned, increases his medication. But the real problem is the coffee, the caffeine spike. If James waited 60 minutes after his coffee, or checked his blood pressure before his coffee, his readings would be 15 to 20 points lower. The correct technique is to avoid caffeine and smoking for at least 30 minutes, ideally an hour, before checking blood pressure. But how many people check their blood pressure right after their morning coffee? Most people. Another source of inaccurate readings that nobody warned them about. Mistake number 8 is using the wrong cuff size. Blood pressure cuffs come in different sizes for a reason. The bladder inside the cuff, the inflatable part, needs to encircle at least 80% of your arm circumference. If the cuff is too small, the reading will be falsely high. If the cuff is too large, the reading will be falsely low. Most home monitors come with a standard adult cuff that fits arm circumferences from about 9 to 13 inches. But many people, especially men and people who are overweight, have larger arms and need a large adult cuff. Using a cuff that's too small can add 5 to 10 points to the reading. Let me tell you about Robert. He's 70, about 240 pounds, arm circumference 15 inches. He bought a blood pressure monitor at the pharmacy, used the standard cuff that came with it. His readings were always high, 164/96, 168/98. His doctor put him on medication, increased the dose, added a second medication. Robert was confused. He felt fine. He didn't understand why his blood pressure was so high. I measured Robert's arm, 15 inches. The standard cuff was at least 2 sizes too small. When we used the correct large adult cuff, his blood pressure was 138/82, 26 points lower. Robert had been overmedicated for 2 years because nobody checked if he was using the right cuff size. Most people use whatever cuff came with their monitor without checking if it's the right size for their arm. Measure your arm circumference at the midpoint between your shoulder and elbow. If it's over 13 inches, you need a large adult cuff. If it's over 17 inches, you need an extra large cuff. Using the wrong size can make your readings completely inaccurate. Mistake number 9 is checking blood pressure only once. Blood pressure varies beat to beat. One single measurement is not enough to determine your true blood pressure. The correct technique is to take at least 2 measurements, preferably 3, 1 minute apart, and average them. The first reading is almost always higher than subsequent readings because of anxiety and adjustment. When you first put the cuff on and start the measurement, there's often slight anxiety. What's the number going to be? That anxiety raises blood pressure. By the second and third readings, you've relaxed. The anxiety has diminished. The readings are lower and more accurate. Let me tell you about Helen. She's 74. She checks her blood pressure once each morning, takes one reading, writes it down. Her readings are always 148 to 152 systolic. When I had Helen take 3 readings and average the second and third, her average was 134 systolic, 14 points lower. That first reading she'd been recording for years was elevated from the anticipation and slight anxiety. The second and third readings were her true blood pressure. But most people take one reading, see the number, and write it down. That single reading might be 5 to 10 points higher than their true average would be. And those artificially high single readings are what's in your log, what your doctor is seeing, what's driving treatment decisions. Mistake number 10 is checking blood pressure at the wrong time of day or in an inconsistent manner. Blood pressure follows a circadian rhythm. It's lowest during sleep, rises sharply in the early morning hours, peaks mid-morning, decreases gradually through the afternoon and evening. If you only check your blood pressure first thing in the morning, you're checking at one of the highest points of your daily rhythm. That reading doesn't represent your average blood pressure throughout the day. Let me tell you about Thomas. He's 68. He checks his blood pressure only in the morning, right after waking up, which is when blood pressure is naturally highest. His morning readings are 154/92. His doctor sees these numbers and increases his medication. But when Thomas also started checking in the evening before dinner, his evening readings were 128/78, 26 points lower. His morning-only readings were making his blood pressure look worse than it actually was on average. The correct technique is to check blood pressure at multiple times, typically morning and evening, to get a complete picture. Morning readings should be taken within 1 hour of waking, before medications, before breakfast. Evening readings should be taken before dinner. This gives you a morning and evening average, which better represents your true blood pressure throughout the day. But most people check once, in the morning, and think that number represents their blood pressure. Those are the 10 deadly mistakes. 10 factors that almost everyone gets wrong when measuring blood pressure. 10 sources of inaccurate readings. 10 reasons why your blood pressure numbers might not reflect your true blood pressure. And when those numbers are wrong, everything that follows is wrong. The diagnosis, the medications, the doses, all of it based on bad data. Now let me give you the correct technique, the exact protocol you should follow every single time you measure blood pressure to ensure the reading is accurate. I'm going to go through this in detailed steps because getting this right matters enormously. Step 1. Timing and preparation. Choose consistent times each day to check your blood pressure. Ideally, twice daily, morning and evening. Morning should be within 1 hour of waking, after using the bathroom, before breakfast, before taking medications. Evening should be before dinner, at approximately the same time each evening. Avoid checking blood pressure within 30 minutes of caffeine consumption. Avoid within 30 minutes of smoking. Avoid within 30 minutes of exercise or physical exertion. Avoid within an hour of alcohol consumption. If you've just been moving around or active, wait at least 5 minutes of sitting quietly before checking. Empty your bladder completely before every blood pressure check. This is non-negotiable. Even if you don't feel a strong urge, go to the bathroom first. A full bladder can add 10 to 15 points to your reading. Step 2. The 5-minute rest period. Before taking any blood pressure reading, you must sit quietly for 5 full minutes. Not 2 minutes, not 3 minutes, 5 full minutes. Set a timer if you need to. Sit in a comfortable chair with back support. Don't talk. Don't look at your phone. Don't read. Don't do anything. Just sit quietly and breathe normally. This rest period is one of the most critical and most commonly skipped steps. When you've been moving around, your heart rate is elevated. Your blood vessels are in a different state. Your sympathetic nervous system is more active. It takes 5 minutes for your cardiovascular system to settle into a true resting state. Checking your blood pressure without this rest period can add 10 to 15 points to the reading. Most people want to skip this step. They're impatient. They want to check their blood pressure and move on with their day. But this 5-minute rest is the difference between an accurate reading and an artificially elevated one. Do not skip it. Step 3. Body positioning. Sit in a chair with back support. Your back should be against the back of the chair, not leaning forward, not slouching. Your feet should be flat on the floor, not crossed at the legs, not crossed at the ankles. Both feet flat and parallel. Leg crossing can add 5 to 8 points to systolic pressure by increasing vascular resistance. Your arm should be supported at heart level. This is critical. Place your arm on a table or desk or the armrest of your chair. The middle of the cuff on your arm should be at approximately the same height as your heart. If your arm is too low, hanging down below heart level, gravity will make the reading falsely high. If your arm is too high, above heart level, gravity will make the reading falsely low. Use a pillow or cushion under your arm if needed to get it to the correct height. Do not hold your arm in the air unsupported. Do not let it hang at your side. Support it on a firm surface at heart level. Step 4. Cuff placement and sizing. First, make absolutely certain you have the correct cuff size for your arm. Measure your arm circumference at the midpoint between your shoulder and elbow. If your arm measures 9 to 13 inches, use a standard adult cuff. If 13 to 17 inches, use a large adult cuff. If over 17 inches, use an extra large cuff. Most monitors come with a standard cuff. If you need a different size, you can purchase it separately. Using the wrong cuff size can make your readings off by 5 to 10 points or more. Remove your sleeve completely. Do not roll up a long sleeve. When you roll up a sleeve, the fabric bunches and creates compression around your arm above the cuff. This affects blood flow and affects the reading. Take off the shirt or wear short sleeves. Place the cuff on your bare arm or over a very thin shirt sleeve that is not bunched. The bottom edge of the cuff should be about 1 inch above the inside of your elbow, above the elbow crease. The cuff should be snug, but not tight. You should be able to slip 2 fingers between the cuff and your arm. The tube from the cuff should be positioned over the brachial artery on the inside of your arm. Step 5. During the measurement. Once the cuff is positioned correctly, press start. Then sit completely still. Do not move your arm. Do not move your body. Do not shift position. Do not talk. Do not answer if someone talks to you. Just sit silently. Breathe normally. Don't hold your breath. Don't take deep breaths. Just continue breathing the way you were breathing during the 5-minute rest period. Do not watch the monitor screen while it's taking the reading. Do not look at the numbers as they appear. Looking at the monitor creates anxiety. What's it going to be? That anxiety raises your blood pressure during the measurement. Close your eyes or look away at something else. Look at the wall. Look at the ceiling. Just don't watch the numbers. Step 6. Multiple readings. After the first reading is complete and the cuff deflates, note the number if you want, but don't record it as your blood pressure yet. Wait exactly 1 minute. Set a timer or watch the clock. 1 full minute of rest. Then take a second reading using the exact same technique. Same positioning, same stillness, same everything. After the second reading, wait another full minute. Then take a third reading. Now you have 3 readings. The first reading is typically the highest due to anticipation and adjustment. The second and third readings are usually lower and more accurate. Write down all 3 readings in your log, along with the date and time. Then calculate the average of the second and third readings only. That average is your blood pressure for that session. This is what you should track over time. This is what represents your true blood pressure. Most guidelines recommend averaging at least 2 readings. Taking 3 and averaging the last 2 is even better. Never base decisions on a single reading. Step 7. Record keeping. Maintain a written blood pressure log. You can use a notebook, a spreadsheet, whatever works for you. For each session, record the date, the time, and all 3 readings. Calculate and record the average of the second and third readings. Over time, you can calculate your overall average blood pressure, which is far more valuable than any single reading. Bring this log to your doctor appointments. This data, collected properly over weeks or months, gives your doctor a much better picture of your blood pressure than a single reading taken in the office under stressful conditions. When Richard started using this exact protocol, when he implemented every single one of these steps correctly, his average blood pressure readings dropped from the 145/90 range to the 118/76 range. First, timing. Check your blood pressure at consistent times each day, ideally morning and evening. Morning readings should be taken within 1 hour of waking up, before breakfast, before medications. Evening readings should be taken before dinner. Avoid checking blood pressure within 30 minutes of caffeine, within 30 minutes of smoking, within 30 minutes of exercise, and within an hour of alcohol. Second, preparation. Empty your bladder completely before checking blood pressure. Sit quietly for 5 minutes before the first measurement. Don't talk, don't look at your phone, don't do anything. Just sit and breathe normally. This rest period is critical. Your body needs time to settle. Your heart rate needs to return to baseline. 5 minutes of rest can lower your reading by 10 to 15 points compared to checking immediately after activity. Third, positioning. Sit in a chair with your back supported. Don't sit on the edge of a bed or a stool where your back is unsupported. Your feet should be flat on the floor. Don't cross your legs. Don't cross your ankles. Keep both feet flat and uncrossed. Your arms should be supported on a table or armrest at heart level. The middle of the cuff should be at the same height as your heart. If your arm is too high or too low, the reading will be inaccurate. Use a pillow or cushion to raise your arm if needed. Fourth, cuff placement. Remove your sleeve completely. Don't roll it up. The cuff should be placed on bare skin or over a thin shirt sleeve that's not bunched. The bottom edge of the cuff should be about 1 inch above the bend of your elbow. The cuff should be snug but not tight. You should be able to fit 2 fingers between the cuff and your arm. Make sure the bladder of the cuff is positioned over the brachial artery on the inside of your arm. Fifth, during measurement. Sit completely still. Don't move. Don't talk. Don't even think about talking. Breathe normally. Don't hold your breath. Don't take deep breaths. Just breathe naturally. Don't look at the monitor while it's inflating and reading. Looking at it causes anxiety, which raises blood pressure. Close your eyes or look away. Sixth, multiple readings. After the first reading, wait 1 full minute. Then take a second reading using the exact same technique. Wait another minute. Take a third reading. Write down all 3 readings. Calculate the average of the second and third readings. Discard the first reading or note it separately, but don't include it in your average. That average is your blood pressure for that session. Seventh, record keeping. Keep a written log of all your readings, date, time, and the average of your readings for each session. Bring this log to your doctor appointments. This data is far more valuable than a single reading taken in the office under stressful conditions. When Richard started using this correct technique, his average blood pressure readings dropped from the 145/90 range to the 118/76 range, a 27-point difference in systolic pressure. That's enormous. That's the difference between diagnosed hypertension requiring multiple medications and completely normal blood pressure requiring no treatment. But before I tell you exactly what conversations to have with your doctor about this, I want to make a request. If what you've learned so far has been eye-opening, if you're realizing that your blood pressure readings have probably been inaccurate, I'm asking you to do two things. First, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. My mission is giving you the detailed information your doctor doesn't have time to explain in a 15-minute appointment. Information that can genuinely change your health trajectory if you understand it and act on it. Second, share this video. Think about every person you know who checks their blood pressure at home or who's been told they have high blood pressure. Your friends, your family, how many of them are making these same measurement mistakes? How many of them might be on unnecessary medications or wrong doses because of inaccurate readings? One share could start a conversation that changes someone's entire treatment plan. And if you want the complete protocols for everything I share on this channel, join my free newsletter, link in the description. You'll be first to know when my comprehensive blood pressure ebook is released with detailed measurement protocols, complete treatment strategies, everything organized into a simple, actionable system. Now let me tell you what conversations you need to have with your doctor about this. First, if you've been checking your blood pressure at home using incorrect technique, you need to tell your doctor. Bring your old logs and explain that you've learned you were making measurement mistakes. Ask if you can recheck your blood pressure at home using proper technique for 2 weeks and bring new data. Many doctors will be willing to reevaluate your treatment based on accurate data. Second, ask your doctor's office to use proper technique when checking your blood pressure. Request that they let you sit quietly for 5 minutes before the measurement. Request that your arm be properly supported. Request that your legs remain uncrossed and feet flat. Request that they take multiple readings. Most offices won't do this automatically because they're rushed and behind schedule. But if you ask, many will accommodate. Third, if there's a large discrepancy between your properly measured home blood pressure and your doctor's office readings, discuss this with your doctor. Tell them you consistently get much lower readings at home using proper technique. Ask about white coat hypertension, which is when blood pressure rises in the doctor's office due to anxiety but is normal otherwise. Ask if you're a candidate for ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, which measures your blood pressure at intervals throughout a normal day and night to get a complete picture. Fourth, if you're on blood pressure medications and your properly measured home readings are consistently showing blood pressure that's too low or well controlled, discuss with your doctor whether medication reduction might be appropriate. Don't change medications on your own, ever. But if you have data showing your blood pressure is lower than anyone realized, that's a legitimate reason to discuss adjusting treatment. Now let me give you the critical safety disclaimer. Everything I've shared today is for educational purposes and should not replace medical care. I am not your personal physician. Never stop, start, or change blood pressure medications without consulting your doctor. Even if your home readings show normal blood pressure, there might be reasons you need medication that aren't reflected in those readings. Some people have blood pressure that spikes during activities not captured by home monitoring. Some people have secondary hypertension from underlying conditions that require treatment regardless of blood pressure readings. Always work with your healthcare provider for all treatment decisions. What I'm encouraging you to do is measure your blood pressure correctly so that you and your doctor have accurate data to base decisions on. Accurate data leads to appropriate treatment. Inaccurate data leads to inappropriate treatment. It's that simple. Tonight, before bed, I want you to think about Richard. 5 years on unnecessary medications. 5 years of suffering side effects that were destroying his quality of life. 5 years of coughing and swelling and urinating constantly and feeling exhausted. 5 years of brain fog and dizziness and declining memory. 5 years of watching his life shrink as activities he loved became impossible. His evening walks with his wife, his mental sharpness, his energy, his sleep. All of it slowly stolen by medications he was taking because of blood pressure readings that were wrong the entire time. All because nobody taught him how to measure blood pressure correctly. All because small measurement mistakes created inaccurate readings that led to inappropriate treatment. Richard sat in my office 6 months after we corrected his measurement technique and adjusted his medications based on accurate readings. He looked different. Lighter, younger. His eyes were brighter. His voice was stronger. "I feel like myself again," he said. "I didn't realize how much I'd lost until I got it back." The cough was gone, completely gone. His throat felt normal for the first time in 4 years. He could talk without interruption. He could sleep without coughing fits. His wife moved back into their bedroom. They were sleeping together again for the first time in years. The ankle swelling disappeared within 3 weeks of reducing the amlodipine dose. His legs didn't ache anymore. He and his wife started taking their evening walks again. 30 minutes around the neighborhood every night after dinner. Talking, connecting, doing something they both loved and had lost. The constant urination stopped when we eliminated the diuretic entirely. Richard could sleep through the night again. 6, 7, sometimes 8 continuous hours. Deep, restorative sleep. He'd wake up feeling actually refreshed for the first time in years. His energy returned. His brain fog lifted. His memory sharpened. He felt like his mind was working properly again. "I keep thinking about all those years," Richard said. "All that suffering, all those pills, all because I was measuring my blood pressure wrong. All because nobody ever watched me do it or taught me the correct technique. The answer was so simple. Rest 5 minutes. Support my arm. Don't talk. Take 3 readings. That's it. That's all it took to reveal that my blood pressure wasn't nearly as high as everyone thought." Richard's story isn't unique. It's happening right now to thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands. People checking their blood pressure at home with incorrect technique, getting falsely elevated readings, making treatment decisions based on those inaccurate numbers, getting overmedicated, suffering unnecessary side effects, living diminished lives because of pills they don't need or don't need at those doses. And it's not just overmedication. The reverse happens too. Some people are undermedicated because their blood pressure is actually higher than their home readings show, but they're making mistakes that lower the readings falsely. Using a cuff that's too large, checking blood pressure when it's at its lowest point of the day, taking one reading when the first one happened to be low. Those people think their blood pressure is controlled when it's actually elevated. They think they're protected when they're actually at risk. Inaccurate blood pressure measurement in either direction leads to inappropriate treatment. Inappropriate treatment leads to harm. Either the harm of overmedication and side effects, or the harm of undertreatment and cardiovascular events that could have been prevented. Getting the measurement right is the foundation. Without accurate measurement, nothing else works properly. That could have been you. That might be you right now. If you've been checking blood pressure at home without proper technique, if you've been making one or more of these 10 mistakes, your readings have been inaccurate, which means any treatment decisions based on those readings might be inappropriate. Starting tomorrow morning, use the correct technique. Rest 5 minutes first. Feet flat, legs uncrossed. Arms supported at heart level. Cuff on bare skin or thin sleeve. Don't talk. Take 3 readings 1 minute apart. Average the second and third. Record it. Do this consistently for 2 weeks. Bring the data to your doctor. Have the conversation. Those 2 weeks of accurate data could reveal that your blood pressure is different than anyone thought, could lead to adjusting medications, could eliminate side effects, could give you back your quality of life the way it gave Richard back his. You deserve accurate information. You deserve accurate measurements. You deserve treatment based on data that reflects your actual blood pressure, not artifacts of poor measurement technique. Share your experience in the comments. Tell me what your blood pressure readings are when you use correct technique versus incorrect technique. Tell me what mistakes you've been making. Your stories help other people recognize themselves and make the changes they need. Subscribe, share this video, join my newsletter, and start measuring your blood pressure the right way. I'll see you in the next video where we continue this mission of getting you information that can genuinely protect your health.